There is a prison in South America unlike any other on Earth. A prison where convicted criminals ran their own economy, where cocaine was produced and distributed inside the walls, and where hundreds of innocent children grew up permanently behind those same bars. This is not fiction. This is a documented case of catastrophic institutional failure, and understanding it may be the most important thing you watch today. La Paz, Bolivia, one of the highest capital cities on the planet. A city of extraordinary beauty and extraordinary inequality. Right in its heart, blocks from the main government plaza, stood San Pedro Prison. Built in the late 1800s to hold a few hundred inmates. By the 1990s it was holding over 3,000, and the Bolivian government made a decision that changed everything. It stopped managing San Pedro Prison entirely. No food programs, no housing structure, no oversight, no resources of any kind. The message to the inmates was never spoken, but it was understood by everyone inside those walls. You are on your own. And so the inmates did something investigators would later struggle to explain. They built a society, entirely from human necessity and survival instinct. They created a real estate market inside the prison. Cells were bought and sold like apartments. The best ones had electricity, running water, and cable television. They cost thousands of dollars. The poorest inmates slept on bare concrete with nothing. 8 internal sections divided the prison like city neighborhoods. Each one had its own leadership, economy, and rules. And running through all of it, openly and without concealment, was cocaine. Not hidden, not secretive, simply present, as a documented part of daily life inside the institution. The product was, by multiple verified accounts, exceptionally pure. Distribution networks carried it directly from San Pedro Prison into the streets of La Paz, through visitors, through financially compromised guards, through channels protected by documented layers of corruption. The institution that was supposed to prevent this had instead become its operational hub. But this is not the most important part of this story. The most important part walked on much smaller feet, because inside San Pedro Prison, there were children. Bolivian law at the time permitted young children of inmates to live inside prison with their convicted fathers. The justification was economic. Many inmates were their family's only financial provider. Their partners, living in poverty with no support system, had no other option, and so the children came inside. At its peak, an estimated 200 children lived permanently inside San Pedro Prison. 200 children who had committed no crime, who had violated no law. Toddlers navigating the same alleyways as convicted murderers. Primary school children playing football in courtyards where open drug transactions happened meters away. Teenagers who had never in their conscious lives walked a street outside prison walls. One investigative journalist documented watching a group of young children playing in the central courtyard. At the other end, a drug transaction was happening in open daylight. A guard sat against the wall, watching, doing nothing. The children did not look up, because this was not unusual. This was every afternoon. In 2009, the Bolivian government finally ordered all children removed from San Pedro Prison. Social workers sent through the iron gate were not prepared for what they found. Children gripping the bars as they were let out, not with relief, with loss. Because this was the only home they had ever known, the reintegration process that followed failed them again. No dedicated support programs. No specialist psychological services. No financial assistance for receiving families. Many children ended up in overcrowded orphanages. Some ran away, some attempted to return to San Pedro Prison. Because their fathers were still inside, psychologists who worked with these children afterward documented severe and consistent trauma responses. Profound difficulty trusting authority figures, hypervigilance in open public spaces, deep attachment disorders from sudden separation. The government had removed the children from San Pedro Prison, but it had not removed San Pedro Prison from the children. How does something like this happen? Criminologists call it institutional abandonment. It does not arrive in one dramatic moment. It arrives through a budget cut here, a report ignored there, a bribe accepted by an underpaid official, a politician who knows exactly what is happening and calculates that those inside the walls cannot make ignoring them politically costly. Institutional abandonment is the documented result of a society deciding, through consistent inaction, that certain lives do not warrant full protection. San Pedro Prison has been significantly reformed since those years. The open drug markets have been dismantled. The children have been removed. New oversight structures are in place. But investigators and human rights researchers who continue to monitor Bolivia issue a consistent warning. The underlying conditions that created San Pedro Prison remain. The poverty, the inequality, the institutional corruption. Which means this story is not history, it is a warning. A warning for every society that quietly decides certain lives are not worth protecting. Remember the children of San Pedro Prison. Not as statistics, not as footnotes, but as children. Children who deserved classrooms without bars. Playgrounds not shared with convicted criminals. Childhoods that belonged entirely and unconditionally to them. They deserve better. Every single one of them deserved better. If this moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like this video if you learned something today. Subscribe for a new documentary investigation every week. Because next week we go deep into another case that will leave you asking the same question. How did the world allow this to happen? I will see you in the next one.